Hi, I'm Kate. I love and hate the internet. Today, I love it because it has given rise to, largely because of the ease of digital distribution, the era of the indie game. But what is indie gaming? This is an important question. The technical definition of indie gaming is video games created by individuals or small teams, generally without video game publisher financial support. This tends to mean that indie game developers aren't constrained by the financial concerns or the creative input of a generally non-creative entity like a publisher, which means that indie developers get to make weirder stuff if they want to, and this has given the indie game genre the reputation that it has now. Artsy, weird, out there games that no publisher would want to take a risk on. There are thousands of independent game developers, and one of the cutest Wikipedia articles I've ever seen is one that attempts to catalog them all into a list. It's adorable. There are lots of terrific indie games and lots of really terrible ones. Let's talk about one that you've almost certainly heard of, Journey, which came out in 2012, developed by a company called That Game Company. You've probably played it, and if you haven't, you absolutely should. Its Wikipedia entry in the first sentence describes it as an indie video game, and in fact it won Best Independent Game at least one major award festival. However, the development relationship between That Game Company and Sony, whereby That Game Company was contracted to develop 3 games for Sony, including Journey, Flow, and Flower, is a publisher-developer relationship. Thus, Journey is not an indie game by the definition of the term. But Journey certainly doesn't feel like a AAA game either, like GTA or Halo, and we don't have a term to define what that middle ground is, I don't think. So maybe it just needs its own term. AA? That's a battery. No, we shouldn't do that. We'll workshop this. In my opinion, indie is beyond its definition. It's not just a small developer that has developed their game independent of a publisher's support. It's too vague. It's become a genre like shooter or RPG. The problem arises when independent developers who have actually spent time developing a game without any financial support grow possessive of the title, when they turn their noses up at developers who have received money for the development of a game. A tale as old as time, and perhaps actually further evidence that video games are art if the creators are having squabbles about who sold out and who hasn't. Anyway, indie should not be a label that's used to deride or belittle games as being better than or less than. There are astounding games that are indie, there are astounding games that are AAA, and there are astounding games that are hovering somewhere else along the spectrum. And let's not forget that there are shitty games all along the spectrum too. If my cursory research on other art types is any indication, both film and music have suffered from this exact same quandary about what makes someone indie and what hasn't. So at least we're not alone. And speaking of film, if you're interested in indie gaming, do check out the documentary that's on, I think it's on Netflix Instant, called Indie Game the Movie, although take it perhaps with a grain of salt, and the trailer for the upcoming documentary called Game Loading: Rise of the Indies, which is coming out in March 2015. Big shout out to Ron Gilbert's blog post from April of this year, which has had this question rattling around in my head for the last 8 months, and I had to finally get it out. Thanks, Ron. Thank you also to my precious humans on Patreon. Thank you so much to the rest of you as well. You can come back to me on Twitter about your Christmas swag at SheGeekShow, but whatever you do, remember, it's just fucking video games, and it's just fucking Christmas. Have a happy one. Ready?